track at the wall. We are tied. Look at this. He's landing it forward. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Dropping a big leg. Over for the cover. He got it. Unbelievable. High fly ball into right field. She is gone. Awesome. He got it. The starter. Mike Tyson in. Austin is the champion. Stone Cold. Stone Cold. Stone Cold.
Now the 2-2. Well hit down the left for a line. Way back in. Touch the ball, Drew. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
Oh my God, no! Mankind did it! Nick Foley did it! No! Stone Cold did it! Mankind has achieved his dream and the dream of everyone else who's been told you can't do it! No! You can't do it! You can't do it! No matter what, got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up.
One of these days, I'm going to remember that damn pencil to the Mr. Perfect. One of these days. Someday. Welcome to WWE WAR on the North-South Connection Podcast Network. I'm JT. That's Marcus. We are here in audio and video formats for this podcast. Audio on all podcast applications under the North-South Connection banner and on YouTube on the North-South Connection page there. And this is one podcast, Marcus, where I recommend watching us on YouTube because we have some amazing graphical work by our great producer, not the tool man, Tim Taylor, who's in the booth with us tonight. And there's a lot of numbers, a lot of bouncing around, stats and different stuff. And it just makes it a lot easier to see it and visualize it, I think, along with the show. So big thanks to him for all the work he's done to make the show a little bit more appetizing for viewers. So that said, Marcus, how are you?
I'm good. As we're recording this, the Yankees 1 through 9 are pretty much all 2001 Barry Bonds tonight, so feeling pretty good. And yeah, shout out to our Silver Slugger, Mr. Tim, producer Tim, making everything happen. But yeah, man, happy to be here talking about this specific time in WWE. I was like super dialed into the product, as you can tell by my shirt if you're watching the show on YouTube. You know, this is the season for my guy during this time period. And I'm looking forward to covering this show and the next show that we'll be talking about.
Yeah, it's an interesting stretch of time. It felt like the closest they got to a boom before this boom that they're in now. Like that felt like a tease. It was like, oh, they're getting kind of hot. The network started, you know, Brian and Punk, and like these guys were kind of raising up, and it felt like it was kind of taken over again. And then they just make some bizarre mistakes in 2014 and 15. They start this real anti-fan sentiment, and it's just an odd approach that they take. They start to become like adversarial, and I think that really pushed them back. And then they get to the bloated era that we've covered on the show before. So I really then took the pandemic to reset them to kind of what they are now. So speaking of shirts, I'll give a shout out to my favorite freshman, Ryan Mila from Providence College Friars. He'll be back next year as a sophomore. Mila Mania is running wild at the AMP. And we're running wild here tonight, Marcus. So we are in the 2013-14 season. We'll be covering Payback 2013 tonight. But what we're going to do is we're going to throw it over to producer Tim. He's going to tell you all about the rules and how this show works.
Welcome to WWE WAR. I'm producer Tim. JT and Marcus have taken on the noble task of finding the true answer to the age-old question wrestling fans have debated for years. What is the greatest WWE pay-per-view of all time? To find the answer, WAR looks to explore each and every pay-per-view using a plus-minus scale at a baseline average, where things above average gain a point and things below average lose a point. WWE WAR grades on several categories, including match quality, build, commentary, atmosphere, notable moments, card structure, and rewatchability. The magic number to remember for WWE WAR is 2.5. That is the baseline number for an average replacement level match. Any grade higher or lower than 2.5 raises or lowers the average WAR score. For example, if JT and Marcus give a match a 3-star rating, then that match is 0.5 points above replacement. Add all of the totals up and you get your nice round number to give you your match quality grade. There's also a bonus. If there is a match that both JT and Marcus rate 4.25 or higher, or 0.75 or lower, that match gains or loses a point for either an all-time great match or an all-time bad match. By the time we're done, we will have composed the most comprehensive list ever for WWE pay-per-views to give you the answer of what is the greatest WWE pay-per-view of all time. Take it away, boys.
You know, I think one of our regrets early on was that we didn't do a category around theme music for these shows. The Nation of Domination B Team theme is a goated one. You know, I always remember the NWO B Team, and we play that often on Wrestling Warzone coming back June 17th. But we, I think, is overlooked sometimes. The Nation B Team of the Godfather, Mark Henry, and D'Lo Brown. I actually liked their version better than the one The Rock and Owen Hart would use during that brief time in 1998. But anyway, I digress. All right, so you heard the rules from producer Tim. We're going to dive into Payback 2013. Took place on June 16th from the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, right outside Chicago. 14,623 in attendance. Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, and JBL on the call. We're going to run through the card here, Marcus, give our grades, and then we'll start to go ahead and get into our categories. As you can see the note here from producer Tim, this year's Payback event was the first in company's history, taking the place of the beloved No Way Out pay-per-view. Beloved is a little bit strong. Payback 2013 is also pretty important in the lore of the Place to Be Nation. PlaceNation.com, the website, launched on June 1st, 2013. And the Payback Live blog was one of the first things we did. Our old buddy Brad, who helped run PTBN.com, hosted that blog, interacted with viewers as the show was going on. So the show always kind of held that in my heart as kind of important to our history here as a team. We did have one pre-show match. Sheamus defeated Damian Sandow in 10 minutes. And then that brings us to our opener, which saw Curtis Axel defeats Wade Barrett and The Miz to win the Intercontinental Championship. Axel had Paul Heyman. He was a Paul Heyman guy at this time in his corner. And Marcus, I gave this one a gentlemanly 3. I thought it was cromulently worked by these guys. I thought it was fine, kind of 3 pros. You know what you're going to get with Miz. We talked about this before the show, too. Like, this is kind of my least favorite era of Miz that we're going to be covering this season, sadly. Kind of milquetoast face Miz with the Ric Flair figure 4 gift. Just wasn't always my jam. I prefer heel Miz or kind of fired up Hollywood babyface Miz if he's going to be a face versus this kind of weird, just smiley, happy-go-lucky Miz. Axel is an interesting case, Marcus. Like, what did you feel about him at the time? Like, I always felt like one of those guys that deserved something because of his legacy. But man, once he kind of gets a little bit of a strapped onto him, that rocket strapped onto him in this season here, and like it's fine, but I don't know, something's missing.
Yeah, so earlier you talked about how the company was on a little bit of a heater and starting to get like some public interest back into the product, but then there's these decisions that the company seems pretty bent on making and directions they want to go in, and it's kind of in spite of the face of the fans. And I think this Axel decision right out of the gate here in early June is one of those first decisions that I think we'll see many more of as the season continues. Not that I didn't like Axel. I love the idea of Axel. I love the theme music, the presentation, thought all that was great. But this was Fandango's spot, and the fans were really behind Fandango,
Yeah.
whether you just want to say it was the entrance music or whatever. But that is a guy who was on that 2-year season of NXT that some people followed. He had the vignettes on SmackDown building him up. And then when he finally gets repackaged as Fandango, it all clicks, and it's a character, a much needed character during this time. And it was fun, and it was pro wrestling, and people got behind it. And he gets hurt, and it was almost like the excuse they needed not to go with him.
Right.
And they end up going with Axel. Again, not that anything was wrong with Axel, it's just the fan interest was behind Fandango. And like, sure, if you want to get it to Axel here, okay, but Fandango is going to be cleared from the concussion in a couple of weeks. Like, why are you so bent on just going with a new heel as champion? So I thought that was kind of a misstep. Again, not so bad having him win it, but he has a title for a while, and they never, I think we'll see this season, but they never really get back on Fandango.
And it's an interesting comparison to modern day in a way, because they go through these pockets of time. And I get why they do it, because I would too, but they just think Paul Heyman can get anyone over by osmosis. And his track record is weird, right? Besides like Brock and Reigns, not counting 90s WCW, I mean modern day. There's a lot of misses in there. Like they put him with Punk, and that was weird. Then they put him with Cesaro, and that's kind of weird. Axel's kind of weird. And then we'll see now, right? They're trying again to give him the stable to help him get over with him at the helm. Obviously he's a great manager and one of the best of all time, but his track record in the early 2010s, I think actually hurt his legacy a bit at times. We'll see now how it goes. Axel, it feels like Heyman's Red Rooster in a way, like that with Bobby had a little more successful maybe, but it was almost like, I can take this guy and win. It's almost like he's doing it as a good deed or something. Like it's odd. It's like he's doing a pro bono or something in the storyline. So whatever, we'll see where Axel goes from here. It's just some of these sons just don't hit, like DiBiase Jr. felt the same. It's like they wanted so bad for him to be his dad. And I think they wanted so bad for Curtis Axel to be his dad. It's like they just didn't hit, right? And it's not their fault, but I don't think anyone had any expectations for Sim Snuka, but I think they just want them to be there, and it's just a hard legacy to live up to, right? Like Cody is a rarity, not the rule, right? So anyway, that was a tangent, but 3-3 for us on this one. What do you got next, Marcus?
Yep. All right, next up I've got Caitlyn versus AJ Lee for the WWE Divas Championship. I went to 2.75. I remember this match being like, oh my gosh, this might be the best women's match that they've had in
probably was
1994.
it might have been in 2013.
It might have been. Not quite as good on rewatch in 2025, but I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing that they've given the women the runway to really show what they're capable of. This one had a little bit of story behind it. I think just what ends up hurting it is they end up like making Caitlyn this, crying, overly emotional. She's embarrassed. She's gotten to it. It's just not a good look for a baby face.
She looks like just a pussy.
Yeah, it's really weird. And the crowd already likes AJ, so you're already like swimming upstream. But for a match, this was pretty good. I thought it had really good intensity. That's the thing that stood out to me. There was intensity and an urgency in the match. Some problems with the layout, but overall, 2.75 is pretty solid.
It's like my hot take is that AJ Lee is just so fucking overexposed during these couple of years that it honestly is like too much AJ. I joked about Curtis Axel being too much Curtis Axel at times in the stretch, but like they love AJ. We talked about that a little bit in our last episode, but and I do think there's just some questionable decisions in how she's presented at this time, because she was like a wretched heel, but then you have her like with sympathetic Dolph later, or during this time, and it's like, I don't know, it's like that China 99 stuff where it's like she's a face when she's wrestling, but she's with Triple H, who's a despicable heel. She's being awful to Caitlyn, bullying her, and then she wins. So Caitlyn gets embarrassed the whole feud, and then whatever. It's like, but AJ must pose at this time, so it's like she was going to win, and you're right. It probably was the best. Like, I think we were drooling over it because before this, you'd have your blips, right? Your Trishas and Mickeys, and there's a couple things with Beth in there in 2010, and you get the odd her and Kelly deliver right here and there, but and Mickey and others at the time, but this felt like, oh shit, these two girls like know how to wrestle, right? They're not like trained up from being models, and they delivered a cool match because they overbooked the hell out of it. Like this felt different. This is really, I think AJ is really on the doorstep of the what's to come, right? She's, we'll talk about Paige eventually and stuff, but like AJ to me was just the first real herald of the new era of women's wrestling. So, but when you look back at it, it's like, okay, like that was fine. But at the time, for sure, we probably would have graded this higher in the moment, is my guess. But 2.75 for me as well. All right, next up, we have Kane taking on Dean Ambrose for the United States Championship. Dean Ambrose is the champion, of course, and he wins this match by countout in just under 10 minutes. I went 2.25. It's about what you would expect from these two. Kane's another guy that we're going to see a whole hell of a lot of here. Just like we did a lot in the 2015-16 season. We see a lot of him here. And they do a count-out finish, which I'm not like against, because I thought the way they did it wasn't the typical, like they're trying to protect Kane. Ambrose lays him out with a DDT on the floor and just like knocks him out. So like, I actually didn't hate the finish. I don't think it was your standard garden variety count-out where it was like, oh, they're fighting, and then he slides in at the last second, or he pushes him into the post and rolls in. I thought Ambrose, it was like a strategy. He actually took him out on the floor and then got in the ring and stood tall. So I didn't hate the finish, but they just don't really click, and it's what you would expect from these two.
Yeah, pretty big on Kane, but it kind of ends around 2003.
It's a lot of Kane after that.
It's a lot of Kane after that. He's filling up the stat sheet, and not a lot of it's good. Like, reiterate what you said about the finish. Totally agree. I just wish this was a little bit hotter, like a little bit more of a brawl, a little bit more chaotic in that sense. But yeah, it's 2.25 for me too. We go on to match 4 on this show, and we have Dolph Ziggler defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Alberto Del Rio. This one for me is a full fiver. I was back and forth. Is it 4.75? Is it 5? And doing the rating that we do, for me, it's a full 5. Shout out Chad with his 10-point scale, his 10-point system. This would be, probably like a 9.75 or 9.8 or whatever. I need to learn more about the scale, but yeah, as far as, is it a 5 or not? For me, it is. What they're able to do and how they're able to get this crowd to go along with exactly what they want is perfect. Everybody plays their part so well. AJ, Ricardo, the ref, checking on Dolph and the urgency, all of the strikes by Del Rio, like shout out both Del Rio and Ziggler. There is not a single glimpse of daylight in any of these strikes. It's really vicious looking. It's believable looking. I'm a huge fan of this match. Again, like the crowd is super into it. And it felt like was this kind of supposed to happen? Type of double turn, but it's just so well crafted. It's not Hart Austin, but if we're putting things into the double turn Hall of Fame, this makes it in for me. It's
great. It's awesomely executed. I went for the story of the concussion and all the head strikes by Del Rio. It was a good double turn. I actually like face Del Rio in 2013. So like I'm not saying he was like definitely had to turn heel, but it works well to do so. I think the fans really wanted to cheer for Dolph anyway during this time period. You know, it was sad to see like Dolph finally get his moment, cash in, and then lose the belt. But I do think it was like a match worthy of that. I think the screw up is that Dolph like doesn't later get his revenge. We'll see where things go, but like this should have built to him winning the belt back at like SummerSlam triumphantly as a face, right? And that's where the should have went. They just didn't care enough about Dolph to ever really truly commit to him. But the match itself is phenomenal. Like you said, vicious strikes. I actually really like 2013 Alberto Del Rio. It sucks that he's such a shitbag person because I always really enjoyed him anyway. But in this year, I think he's really locked in on the character work and the in-ring. I give the credit to the festive theme music. I think that really amped it up for him. But this really worked. Now, you mentioned AJ. She's good in the match, but like we basically almost had back-to-back instances, again, of her being a bitch to Caitlyn, a real heel, and then like she's part of this sympathetic double turn, but she doesn't turn too. You know what I mean? Like she should have turned and apologized to Caitlyn, I guess, whatever after. But it's like she stays an awful heel, and I think her and Dolph kind of split. But it's like just don't have her out there during this, or don't have her do the Caitlyn match here. Like just have her be this, and then then maybe leave him and reestablish herself as a heel. It felt very contradictory to have her out there is just such an awful person to Caitlyn, and then out here helping garner sympathy for Dolph nearly dying from brain injury. So
yeah,
but it's an awesome match. If you haven't watched it recently, it holds up really, really well. So definitely go check it out.
And yeah, should mention if we hadn't that Del Rio wins the World Heavyweight title here.
Yes. All right, match number 5 on our card brings us to Chris Jericho taking on CM Punk. Punk had been off TV since WrestleMania when he lost to The Undertaker. Comes back as Jericho baited him. I don't think he was even on TV in the build. It was just Jericho kind of, being kind of carrying the feud on his own. And this is really a simple build. It's just about who's the best in the world, right? Jericho claims it's him and not Punk, and Punk comes back to prove him wrong. The worst part of this time period of Punk is the stupid Wolverine mutton chops that he's got going on. I always thought those looked stupid. But this is a really good match. Punk wins. I went 4 1/4 stars. I was honestly ready to complain about this for the first handful of minutes. I was like, it's going to be one of those matches that should be great and isn't. And then they really find that gear and it pops. I thought they really, really picked up steam. It goes 21 minutes. And by the end, I was into it. So good on them to really kind of get the crowd going. Maybe Punk had a little couple month rust to knock off, but it definitely felt a little bit like it was going to be a letdown for the first 6 or 7 minutes.
Yep. This started out like a Jericho match, and you're like, oh boy, here we go again. And then you get sucked into it about halfway through, and before you know it, during this time period, he could still pull the nose up and deliver a classic. So it's a classic for both of us, 4.25, all-time great match. Bottom tier Punk look for sure. And someone's going to say about Jericho here. It feels like Jericho has the formula figured out before we knew there was a formula, because the back end of this match is just very counter reversal finisher tease heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it and I'm like, he knows the formula. Punk knows the formula, but in 2013, we don't know the formula yet. And so watching it, it almost felt like, oh, you could have this match now and it would probably still get the same reaction.
Right.
Because the formula is still the same. So yeah, these two ahead of the curve, ahead of the game. And
I don't know if Jericho could have this match now, though.
Well, every once in a while.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Body may cave inside. And listen, there's not a shot at Chris Jericho. He's an old man that's partied hard. I mean, I think when we did our last GWE, I think I had him inside the top 13. So I mean, he's a WWE legend, but time takes us all down, buddy. That's my body telling me I have to play basketball tonight.
All right.
I feel like Dolph Ziggler's head felt in that match. All right, next match. What do we got?
Oh, we've got for the tag team championships, it is the Shield of Seth Rollins and the Big Dog Roman Reigns taking on Randy Orton and Daniel Bryan. I went 3.25. Something about Bryan and these tag matches with the Shield just picks up the energy. And
Mm-hmm.
this match, following like the story heavy match with Dolphin Del Rio earlier, and then story but also action heavy match with Punk and Jericho, this match just goes right in and they get to it and they pick up the pace, and it does have some story to it as well with Orton and Bryan. But I mean, it's exactly what it should have been in this spot. So 3.25 for me. Another really good match from this combo, guys.
Yeah, I went 3. I liked it. It did feel a little disappointing though. Like I expected maybe a little bit more out of it. It's in a tough slot on the card though.
Yeah.
There's some pretty good stuff. So it's kind of a weird placement, but it's still good. It's still entertaining, and they definitely give them a little bit of time to cook. They give them 12 minutes. But it definitely feels like both guys are in a little bit of a holding pattern. We know why, where it's going soon. But for right now, it definitely felt like Bryan and Orton had just kind of like, all right, like hell no is kind of done. Just have these guys fight the Shield for a bit until we get to the next stage for them, which is coming at the end of the summer. So, all right, main event time. I shocked the world last episode with my thoughts on John Cena versus Ryback. I gave that a 3.75 at Extreme Rules. And guess what, folks? I'm going 3.75 again on this match. This is a 3 stages of hell for the WWE title. First stage is a lumberjack match. Second stage is a tables match. Third stage, ambulance. Ryback wins the first fall, and then Cena takes the back 25 minutes. And the end's pretty good. Cena gives Ryback the attitude adjustment through the roof of the ambulance, which looked really cool. I just dig their chemistry. Like, for whatever reason, this series has spoken to me. I thought Ryback completely exceeded any expectations I had of him in this series. I thought his energy, I think his power offense is a little bit different than you would expect. It's crisp. And he wrestles with a real like anger and urgency in him that I think really delivers. And Cena just went for the ride with him. Like, you kind of let him throw him around, and he did his spots. And, 2013 Cena is 2013 Cena. You're going to get the weak ass SDF. You're going to get your, over exaggerated facial expressions. It's just 2013 Cena. But I thought for whatever reason, Ryback really just worked well with him. So I dug this. I liked the 2-match series. And I don't know, there's a universe where they just say, fuck it, and strap up Ryback. But I know they had bigger things ahead. And it's hard to say, like, not to go with Del Rio. So I think there just wasn't like a spot for him right this second. They could have done the 1-month reign, I guess, right, coming off Mania, but you just had Cena go with The Rock for the title. Like, you're really going to have him trade the belt with Ryback for 2 months. So I think Ryback basically getting the draw and then getting a fall on Cena here is a pretty good concession.
Yeah, I just remember not feeling that way at the time. And again, watching it, it's just like, man, we're going to do 2 matches. I kind of wish you would have flipped the title. But it is fun seeing Cena go through this monster stretch. As we'll see continues during the summer. I wouldn't have really put together that, like, right after Rock, he faces Ryback a whole bunch, and then he'll have his next challenger at Money in the Bank. So it's a cool 3-show series for Cena taking on these monster type guys. Mm-hmm. It's a 3 for me. So considerably lower than you, but it wasn't bad. It was totally fine. And it was fun. It was enjoyable.
Yeah. And I thought Ryback, if nothing else, delivered on the chance they gave him. Like, I don't think he came up short or whiffed on his opportunity. I thought he came out of this, honestly. We'll see how they go with his push like from here, but this felt like they made him a bit. Like, I really, and we didn't watch the stuff from the year before. I remember liking that too, with him and Punk and Cena and all that. Like, I thought he did pretty well there too. So, and he was a big part of the Shield stuff too at the end of 2012. So we'll see. Maybe Ryback holds up a little bit better than you would think. For now, anyway, early on. I know it goes downhill as we move along, but for now, it's okay. All right, so that wraps up our match grades, and that gives us a pretty strong WAR score, Marcus, of 6 for in-ring on this show. That's like good to great on our scale. So very, very underrated and overlooked in-ring pay-per-view, I would say.
Yeah, smaller card and nothing stunk out the joint. Everything was really solid, and then you get the classic with Punk and Jericho. You get the near classic for us with Del Rio and Ziggler.
Or
really,
Ziggler.
really solid show.
Skull would call him at this time. All right, let's get to our other categories. For build, let's dive into that. So we did give a point for Curtis Axel becoming a Paul Heyman guy and getting some big upset wins in there. A point for Wade Barrett and the Miz swapping the Intercontinental title. Miz won it at WrestleMania in the Reign with the figure 4. Barrett won it back on Raw. AJ Lee and Big E set up Caitlyn with the fake admirer. We talked about AJ kind of bullying her and her looking stupid, and they do that here. They basically catfish her. They're sending all kinds of notes, and you have a secret admirer, and it ends up being Big E, but it's just a setup for AJ to embarrass her, and then she loses here. So it's kind of weak. But the build was fine. Del Rio running the gauntlet to get the world title match. A point for Jericho calling out Punk to determine who the best in the world is, and he goes tit for tat with Heyman to ramp that up. And then Daniel Bryan, Orton, and Kane, the first team to beat the Shield in a 6-man tag on Raw. So that was a big deal. And Cena and Ryback have been battling since WrestleMania and right through Extreme Rules to here. So they've had a pretty good 2-month feud leading up to that. So that's our pros for this show.
Yeah, very consistent TV. Let's check out the cons. We have AJ earns a title shot in a battle royal. Always a lazy way to get to a number one contender.
Right through it and was on TV for 6 hours that night.
I wonder if it's like Iron Sheik winning the gimmick battle royal. Like they can't dump AJ over the top. And then we get Fandango hurt, kills his push, and they end up going with Axel. So again, really solid TV. Were they
going to put Fandango with Heyman?
I don't think so, but I think Fandango was supposed to be in this triple threat, and the Intercontinental title had his name written on it pretty much.
I wonder why they decided to put it in the Heyman thing. Interesting. All right. Yeah. Anyway, that nets out our war score for build to a 5. So there you go. All right, let's go over to commentary now. Look at our pros here. Nice touch talking about Axel, Mr. Perfect for Father's Day. They really kind of played that up, and it is a cool touch. He wins the title, and he kind of looks at the sky and all that. And the IC title obviously tied in very closely to Mr. Perfect in the 90s. All night long, JBL does a pretty good job talking psychology and importance of title matches and how you go in to approach those. A point for the good job telling the story of Dolph's head injuries and the double turn. I thought they explained things pretty well throughout that match. And again, did a good job explaining the falls and stages in the main event, kind of how the strategy changes through each fall. This isn't a great, our favorite team, but they've had some moments so far in the season.
Yeah. We'll check out the cons. We have King goes right to his all women secretly despise each other shtick and talking point. Overall, just a lot of boring commentary. You call it that, that sportscasters type.
It's like a West Coast baseball radio announcer. It's like
yes. We got JBL
the A's radio team. So he just fucking you want to go to bed, or even like their baseball. If you put it on like MLB.TV or whatever, and it's like, midnight A's Rangers on the Oakland broadcast. It's like
going into extras.
Yeah. Snooze City.
Last two here, we got JBL disappearing for minutes at a time, and he jumps back in with Fed lines.
Aha, Marcus!
Aha! And then the goat jokes about Brian. It's corny. It takes you out of it a little bit.
It's like Taz being a pit bull or whatever. I don't know whether Vince's obsession with animals, people being animals. Anyway, that's a wash. That's a 0 for commentary. But when you look at the team and who we're dealing with at the time we're dealing with them, a wash is probably the best they may get. So good for them, I guess, to have some strengths on this night. All right, let's get over to atmosphere. It's usually a big category for these shows. We gave a point for the big pop, not that big pop, a solid pop for Curtis Axel winning the IC title, but it was, again, a cool moment. Big cheers to Dean Ambrose against Kane. Like, this crowd was into him in Chicago. Big pop for Dolph Ziggler's return and the great split atmosphere of the entire match with the double turn. Point for the massive ovation for Punk, and another point for the monster pop when he wins. Just super over. Big pop for Brian, and then a point for how Chicago is featured all night. They really took pride in honoring the tradition of the city and presenting the show as special. And sometimes you get shows like this in Payback and, No Way Out and Bad Blood and these random pay-per-views. They make them a little bit special when they have them in these big cities and they tie it into it. Like, this is a Chicago pay-per-view. Who cares if it's just Payback, in June of 2013? It's Chicago. You're going to have a hot crowd. Let's play it up.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. It really made the show stand out for me too. Let's see any cons for atmosphere. We've got the crowd either booing or apathetic to the Miz, only to face. He's the only face in the opener. Again, this face run isn't exactly the best use of Miz. I think they get it a little closer to right in 2019, but this run as a babyface is kind of dead on arrival. AJ is a heel with an upbeat pop song. Caitlyn is a face with a slow, heavy theme.
Yeah, that was weird too. It's like, I don't know, and she's skipping around, but she's like the bitch. And then Caitlyn has like this heavy emo fucking song, and it's like, all right. I think their roles just needed to be reversed, and this all works a lot better because AJ could have good sympathy going right into the double turn with Dolph, and Caitlyn has like a good heel look, and she's bigger, and you just don't have to do the stupid, catfish storyline. You can just have Caitlyn pick on her and be like, look, you're smaller than me. Dolph's never going to win the big one. This, like whatever. She could have done that shit. And then all the rest makes sense a lot better. This just felt miscast to me.
Yeah. We get the crowd boos and chants "You tapped out" as they try to do a solemn cry and Caitlyn ovation moment.
They did not buy into that at all.
They ate her up, and it was the booking. No win there. Crowd farting all over the count out finish, which was again decently crafted. And then the crowd out on Cena, but also chanting Goldberg or Ryback.
That's like my least favorite part of some of this. And it doesn't really go away, I don't think, for a bit. But I know the comparisons, but it does take it out of the moment a little bit. And it's not fair to Ryback. He's actually doing pretty good in these spots. Mm-hmm. And the Goldberg chants are stupid. It does make me wish they did a Goldberg Ryback match at some point, though. Would have been cool. All right, 2 for atmosphere. That usually, these shows kind of live off atmosphere sometimes. All right, let's get to notable moments. We have a point for Curtis Axel winning the Intercontinental title, a point for AJ Lee winning the Divas title, a point for the first pay-per-view Wyatt family vignette. We didn't talk about that, but the NXT act, Bray Wyatt and his family. And we get the creepy intro to them out in the woods. The announcement, I was excited with this. Rob Van Dam returning at Money in the Bank, so that was cool. A point for Alberto Del Rio winning the world title. A point for Del Rio and Ziggler with their double turn. A point for Ryback pinning John Cena clean. And he escapes the series, Marcus, with never being pinned by Cena, which I think is interesting, right? He gets put through the table, put through the ambulance, wins the lumberjack match, and draw at Extreme Rules. So he escapes the 3-match or 2-match series, which essentially was 4 matches in a way, without getting pinned. So good on him again. He comes out of this about as good as you can without actually beating Cena for the title. And a point for Punk getting to be presented as a face in Chicago was cool. I mean, obviously just a monster hometown pop.
Yeah. The cool thing about the RVD announcement is usually I feel like when they announce so-and-so is coming back next month, it's kind of like a little boo from the crowd because we're here, we want it now. Not this. They were so pumped up and amped, and then as the night goes on, they're randomly chanting for RVD.
Yeah.
And commentary has to address it, and it's super cool. RVD is one of my guys, so that was cool to see.
And I think Chicago is a sneaky ECW town a bit, right? They used to get some stuff through there. And I mean, I'm a huge RVD fan, so I was excited that we're going to get to see him this season. And I think they knew they had Punk coming, so that probably helped their excitement. Okay, we have Punk. We're just happy RVD's coming back. And I don't know if this was announced before, if it was known RVD was returning or not. I don't remember. But this would have been his return since what, 2007? When he lost the stretcher match to
yes, I think there's a Rumble appearance in there somewhere.
Maybe
that's a one-shot deal.
Yeah, but as far as a run, I don't think he had been back.
Yeah,
I don't think. It could be wrong. Producer Tim.
Yeah, no, he hadn't been back for a run yet.
Yeah.
All right. Any cons for our notable moments? They are Caitlyn looks silly in the build and in the match, and then taps out and she's crying in the back, crying going up the ramp. And it felt like the right time to pull the trigger on Ryback. He dominated this feud, and he dominates the match, and they're getting over and working well. Again, probably should have done a switch here just to keep things fresh.
It's something because the U.S. title is with the Shield. You kind of need it there. They wanted. You could have had Miz retain or win the IC and not had it part of Axel. And had Ryback destroy him on Raw the next night to get his heat off of this and just run with the IC belt for a while. If you want to give him a consolation. Axel winning it on Father's Day is a cool touch, though. And you're not going to job him out, so I guess. But anyway, I'm not trying to be a Ryback stan. I just thought he deserved a little bit better. 6 for moments, though. It's a pretty momentous show. A lot happens. All right, let's go over to card structure, which is usually a make or break for these. A good chunk of time and focus given to the Divas title match. So, look, we weren't big fans of how it went, but again, the change in approach is noticed. It is seen that they're giving them more time. They're giving them a story, right? Title change on the big card, so good for them. Also, a point for a loaded card with high stakes. Every match kind of meant something, and the build was there for a lot of this. And then a point for adding big stiff to Cena Ryback is a good fit for their style. And it pays off with Ryback stalking and wrecking them throughout the builds. And so I think it made sense to have a kind of a heavy stipulation on them. So good structure there.
All right. Our cons for card structure are starting with a triple threat match with no real over babyface. A little hard to get into. Which again, Fandango probably would have filled that even as a heel. So you can see the substitution hurting there. Ambrose and Kane work a mat-based match instead of a
that was a weird
brawl.
decision too.
Then they also go to a count out. We get having the dastardly heel AJ and Big E aligned with freshly faced turned Dolph Ziggler 45 minutes after completely ruining a woman's life.
Big E too. Fuck that guy. He just like completely went along with this and like, catfish Caitlyn, help AJ embarrass her, and then he's out there like crying for Doll. Like, what are we doing? Like, just it's right in front of you. It's obvious. Like, just don't do these two things together. It's made no sense.
We get the card full of ambiguous face heel matches all night, and then the World Heavyweight title match being buried in the middle of the show. I thought could have played around with the card structure a little bit more to find a better spot for that.
So -3 for card structure, which is pretty on point for these time periods. All right, let's get to rewatchability. Point for Curtis Axel winning the IC belt on Father's Day. It's a cool moment. Like I said, he wins it. He looks at the sky. They talk about it. So it's good for him. Probably the peak of his career, honestly. Point for the Del Rio Ziggler double turn. A point for Punk's entrance, which is eminently rewatchable. John Cena plancha into the entire roster. You saw the picture earlier when we talked about that match. It was really cool looking. Point for the ambulance bumps. I thought those looked pretty stiff and hard, especially the one at the end. And then a point for Dolph and AJ's entrance. You get the gold. You got Big E. The group clicked. I just wish they structured it better during this time and gave him like a real full run as Dolph is champion, Big E is the muscle, AJ is the chick. Again, another. This feels like timing is off for all these people. Like if all these acts were around like 2 years earlier when they really needed stuff, in like 2010, 2011, it could have really helped. But it's like by the time some of the stuff gets cooking, Brian's heating up, Punk's red hot, they're going to this authority thing soon. Like they kind of had this like path to Mania laid out already of what they wanted to see. So some of the stuff is just like, sorry, we don't have really room for this to be an act that we're going to push to the main event.
Yeah. And on so many things, they also already have their mind made up too. So the time period where they should be flexible and listen to the crowd, they're kind of just going with what it is that they want to go. It gets
worse over the next 3 years from here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it can always get worse. Our cons for rewatchability are Caitlyn crying to booze and then Punk's Wolfman beard. Bottom tier CM Punk look.
It's a 4 for rewatchability. If Punk had better facial hair, the show could have finished 1 point better. All-time matches, we had one. That was CM Punk versus Chris Jericho, an average of we both went 4 1/4. So 1 there. And that brings us, producer Tim, to a total final war score of 21 points, making it 48th all time on our big list of pay-per-views. And let's grab where we stand right now. 131, I think, to this point. Yeah, 131. So pretty good, 40 out of 131. Like, that's a solid showing right there. You can look at what it's around. Take over Blackpool during a pretty hot time for NXT, and Backlash 04, which I think is actually a pretty well regarded pay per view as well. So I think it overexceeded. I think it was carried by the in ring, good build, and a lot happens on it. So, and that kind of was the formula for this show. All right, let's get to our top 10, and then we'll get out of here, close things out for the night. And I'm going to call out. You see something in yellow there. Marcus, we've been going through our books a little bit as we kind of revamped the show, and we created like a new database. So I've been going through a lot and just kind of refixing and moving stuff over. And through that, I have noticed points here and there where we kind of screwed up with the original run. It was 5, it should have been 4, stuff like that. And mostly it's shows that haven't impacted at a high level. But SummerSlam 2015 was off, I believe, by like 3 points. So that pushed it up into the 8th place all time at 39.25. So I just wanted to call that out, make sure we corrected it. And we'll do more as we move along if there are others. Just know we are fixing as we go. So at some point we may publish a list, but we're still in the audit phase here of going through the old book and making sure we're good. So that said, our 10th best show of all time, SummerSlam 1992 at 38.25.
Number 9, SummerSlam 2001 with a 39.
As I just mentioned, SummerSlam 2015 at 39.25.
Number 7, WrestleMania 7 with a 39.5.
Number 6, Vengeance 05 at 41.
Top 5, number 5, SummerSlam 1990 plus 42.
Number 4, Royal Rumble 2002 at 44.
Top 3, SummerSlam 2005 with a 46.5.
WrestleMania 22 at 56.5.
And our number 1 War scored show, ECW One Night Stand 2005 with a 79.
Insanity. I think it's interesting when you look at this top 10. There's 2 things that jump out at me. SummerSlam is goated, like 5 of the top 10 of SummerSlams. And 05-06 was a fucking great season. Because you have 4 shows in the top 10, in the top 6 from that season. Vengeance, SummerSlam, Mania, and One Night Stand, all from that season, inside the top 6 for us. I mean, we still got a lot other seasons to go, but like that's pretty good. Pretty good.
The lesson here is bring back steroids and blading. That season was pretty awesome.
Pulling things out of Jim Ross's ass.
Yeah. But yeah, we're coming up on SummerSlam. We won't get to it next show, but we are approaching that point in our season. So
and it's a heralded SummerSlam. Many consider to be maybe the best of all time. So we'll see.
So we'll see if it cracks top 10.
All right. But for now, we'll be back in 2 weeks with Money in the Bank 2013. Also a really good show. So we'll see how that cooks up and where that finishes. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the show. Give us a like, give us a comment, share us around. We really appreciate it. Check out everything North South Connection. We did a ton of WrestleMania content leading up to the big show in Vegas. A lot of that's evergreen. They can go back and relive. Aaron and I did some cool, rebooking and different rankings and different stuff that we went through and did. One I really liked is we went through every WrestleMania and picked out the worst booking decision from each Mania, which was a lot of fun because there's something I think that haven't really been delved into in the past. So go back, check that out. Check out Marcus and producer Tim at The Final Wrestling Place. And of course, they've now launched a Patreon. So producer Tim, I'm going to tell you to be some selfish maybe in a future episode. Get that link ready, throw it up here so we can get our viewers over to there. A lot of cool content. I get my notifications, Marcus's daily picks in there, and some of the cool content. So be sure to subscribe, sign up over there to my boys. And until then, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Live your life above replacement level.